Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I welcome you as I broadcast from lovely Escazú, Costa Rica. It is Sunday, the 23rd of August, 2020, and it is evening here, and we have an interesting arrangement in the heavens. So the first thing is that the sun went into Virgo yesterday. And Mercury went into Virgo last week, and we talked about these things last week on the podcast. However, what it has now presented to us is that we have 6 planets in Earth. So that's the Sun and Mercury in Virgo. There's Uranus and Taurus, and there's Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, all in Capricorn. So the Earth signs are all covered. There's planets in every one of them, and it means that most of the planets are in Earth. Venus and Neptune are in water, and Neptune is in its own sign of Pisces, and Venus is in Cancer, and Mars, thankfully, is in fire. Right now the moon is in Scorpio, so that's a little more water for a couple of days, and then the moon changes all the time. So what does this mean? It means that we are very practical right now, that many things are finding their way to us through practical matters. It means that we are working with very earthbound energies. It means we're grounded where we need to be grounded. When things are in the ethers like air and fire and water, and they're more imaginative, they're more creative, they're more ideal. They're not in that practical, I get up, I go to work, I come home with a paycheck kind of place. 6 planets in Earth are maybe you feel things are a little boring, but it's allowing us to get a lot done. So if you want to manifest something right now, this is a good time. Because we had that nice new moon last week, I hope people did a manifestation for the new moon. But I also hope that people are finding their ways to practical means. Like if you're looking for a new job, that you're finding a new job, or that you have interviews. That if you are looking for a new home, that you're finding that. If you are doing some very practical, like you're building a new house, you're buying land, these are good things to do now. It can feel to the regular person who's not doing any of those things, it can feel a bit plodding. We're just plodding along here. It's all Earth. It's just all Earth. It's just very, very mundane. Nothing. It's not like everything is in fire and we're just full of creativity and inspiration, and we want to make things happen. And sometimes when we have everything in, say, fire and nothing in Earth, then nothing manifests. So if you really want to manifest something, use the planets, the other planets, the water planets and the fire planets, to do some imaginative work and get creative and be a manifester. And one of the things that's so hard about this is that we don't have a lot of energy for these imaginative things. We have a lot of practicality, and so we're doing our homework and our busy work and our dutiful work and our housework, and it's not as fun as when there's lots of stuff in fire, or it feels very mundane. And that doesn't mean that earth signs are boring. It means that there's a time for everything. And one of the good things about this is that all these earth planets, as they move through their respective signs, not so much Uranus because it's an outer planet, it's going to move very slowly, but the Sun and Mercury are going to make good aspects to the planets in Capricorn that have been causing all the disruption this year. So, people are more likely to sit back and listen, a little more now because of Mercury in its own sign of Virgo. And it's good, sit back and listen when I say that. They're going to be a little more patient. They're going to be a little more, focused. And they're going to, maybe there's not so much energy to go out and protest, or maybe the people are sort of waiting or figuring out practical things to do about stuff. And they are listening to what's going on with the global issues that are happening right now. Now, the sun, as we know, stays in up sign for a month. And so it will be, it went in on the 22nd. It went in yesterday. And it's going to be there till it goes into Libra, which is the 22nd of September. And so there it is. There's a month. And Mercury, however, is going to stay there, and it'll be less time because it moves faster than the sun. So on the 5th of September, which is really not that far away, it's like almost like not even 2 weeks. The 5th of September, Mercury is going to go into Libra. So then we're going to have air, and Venus will go into Leo next month. But, so this is just a mini transition. This is just a lot of Earth right now. Time to get some practical matters taken care of. And until really the 5th, and then we'll have one less planet in Earth. We'll get one more in air. So that's good. We need some words. We need words to discuss and to think and to process and to analyze and stuff. So in the meantime, if you have practical things, if you want to, clean your closets, if you have, maybe you're filing the tax deadline for the October 15th deadline in the United States. Maybe you're figuring out some, practical moves for business or your home. These are all good things to do right now. And it's the things we have to do. It's the duties we have to do. It's our responsibilities. And it's good to have some Earth every now and again. This is a lot of Earth, but we had a lot of Earth anyway. Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto all in Capricorn all year. For most of the year, Saturn stepped out a bit and went into Aquarius. But Jupiter is, still very much, a fiery planet, even though it's in an Earth sign. It's rule Sagittarius, and it lightens up that Earth a bit. And Uranus and Taurus certainly does the same. It's not a typical transit for Uranus, and so in the meantime, one of the things that we need to think about is what practical matters must we tend to? What boring things do we need to work with at this moment? What is not entirely fun for us, but we need to, handle it anyway? What do we need to work on? And so those are good things to do every now and again in this time of year when the sun goes into Virgo. It's that back to school feeling, and we are not back to a normal life. So there's a lot of people who aren't sending their kids back to school because they're still learning from home. And so there's a lot of things that we need to figure out relative to the current cycles. And the Earth planets will help us do that. The planets in Virgo will help us do that. They're a little strategic, they're analytical, and Mercury's in its own sign, so that's good. It's not all Saturn and Mars, which we're going to talk about. So Mercury in its own sign is good right now, and they do support the Capricorn planets, and they do support Uranus and Taurus. So this is all helpful to process what's gone on all year, So I'm expecting that by the time we move through the next few weeks, we're going to have a little bit of a better handle on what's to come as far as, reopening of places and what's next. So, okay, so that's the first thing. The other thing is that we start having some big aspects this week. And remember that Mars is in Aries and it's starting to slow down, and it's been reaching each planet one at a time. It's been going to square those Capricorn planets. And tomorrow it squares Saturn. So Mars in its own sign, Aries, squares Saturn in its own sign, Capricorn, tomorrow at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time, which for me is 12:20 p.m. And that is a very strong combination. Now, Saturn likes being in Capricorn, Mars likes being in Aries, but Mars also likes being in Capricorn. So earlier this year, and I've said this before, but if you're just tuning in, Mars has visited Capricorn earlier this year, met up with all those Capricorn planets, and that's when the shutdowns really started back in March. And now Mars is revisiting those planets from a different angle. So Mars is talking to the planets in Capricorn a little more in a pushy way, because Mars in Aries is pushy. It's a pushier place. It's in its own sign. It wants to initiate. It wants to be first. It wants to, be the warrior. And one of the things about this is that Mars is going to push Saturn, and Saturn's going to push back because they're squaring each other. This is a challenging aspect. And we're feeling it already. I mean, we've been feeling it the last couple days. If you feel like you're plodding along, if you feel like, some people got depressed during this, and, it's been a little hard on some people. Mars Saturn is hard because Saturn is the wall. Saturn is like, the guard that stands at the gate and says, excuse me, what are you doing here? Who are you? And what is this? And Mars is like, get out of my way. I'm just going through. And, it wants to push Saturn out of the way, and Saturn will not have that. So one of the things that we need to pay attention to is where we are pushing up against something that is pushing back against us, or a resistance in our life. Where are we trying to come up with a strategy? Because that can be strategic, Mars and Saturn. And where is it that we're asking too much, or we're pushing too forward, or we're getting angry at certain circumstances or situations that, like, why won't my spouse change after all, 20 years later? Why isn't your spouse changing? Because, they're not going to change to your specification, that kind of thing. Where's Mars in Aries in your chart? Think about it. Where do you feel like you want to push forward and you aren't able to? Where do you feel like you're angry, or you're heated, or you are banging your head, the ram, you're ramming your head against a wall? Where do you feel like you need to be strategic? Where do you feel like, my teacher always said that Mars in Aries was the uncivilized man, squaring Saturn to be like, society is trying to, or government and society are trying to civilize the uncivilized. It's like taking a wild animal and bringing it in your house and trying to make it like a tiger, a house cat, and that generally doesn't work. So there's got to be a way around those kinds of things. And with them. And so Saturn, since it's the slower moving planet, usually wins. But there's a lesson in this. And there's a lesson of patience. Mars in Aries is not patient. Saturn Capricorn tells us we have to be. And people are aggravated. They do want to get out of their houses. They want to get out of this whole COVID thing. They want to stop, being like, they want to stop the whole nonsense they feel is nonsense of, that they don't have their rights, or they don't have their ability to move forward. The people who feel that this is nonsense and they should be, this is where we all have to sort of take a step back and calm down. It's complicated. There's no simple answer to this. And especially since Mars, so back on the 4th of August, it squared Jupiter. So that was one thing. And then on the 13th, it squared Pluto. And so that was another thing. And it's been intense. It's been really intense. That week, that second week and a half ago, that was really intense. when Mars was squaring Pluto. And it's forcing us to transform, but it's also forcing us to not give up. Don't give up. Just observe and kind of obey the rules. And even if you don't want to, you've got to find some negotiation, because it's a square. There's got to be a negotiation somewhere. And, find the place that is comfortable and realize that, you have to be patient. Other people are going through things too. Other people don't like their circumstances. Other people are ready to tear their hair out because they're tired of being at home, or they can't get on an airplane like they normally would. And then there's the people who are finding things out about themselves. And this is how this happens. When a door closes or isn't entirely open to us, we find out things about ourselves that might be valuable. Like, I didn't know I had this in myself. I didn't know I could do this. And that's a really special thing to find out, to step back and say, hey, wow, look at this. I can do this. And I didn't know I could. That's a good Mars Saturn strategy, because Mars wants to take action and Saturn wants to work. And so taking action towards new types of work, or reevaluating the way you work, or doing your work in a new way, or something about your work and the way you want to press forward in your work, or if you're not working, how you want to live your life, then these are really valuable lessons. And so, it's been a little complicated because of Mars Saturn. It's been an aspect already. So tomorrow's the exactitude of it. And after that hour in the afternoon tomorrow, in the Eastern time zone, it should let up a bit. It's still not entirely going to be done. It's like, boom, the aspect's over, and okay, that's it. I'm good, finished. There's some things that, Saturn's saying, whoa, slow down, put the brakes on a little bit, Mars, and, find out what you're just, if you're frustrated, and that this is a frustrating aspect, if you feel frustrated, then you need to kind of step back and ask yourself about the frustration and what could it potentially be about, and how you can shift consciousness so that you're not frustrated. Okay. Then on Tuesday, Venus, that's in the sign of Cancer, Venus is going to oppose Jupiter. So this is Tuesday the 25th. Venus is going to oppose Jupiter. So Venus is now starting to move in the path of the cardinal signs that squares all those clusters in Capricorn. Okay, so now, what does this look like? Well, yesterday the moon was in Libra, and the moon, it was hard. The moon was making aspect in a T-square, and that's like a table with only 3 legs, like a card table, a square table with only 3 legs. And so one of the things that I discussed on my Instagram yesterday was that I drew a little diagram, and I explained that that cluster in Capricorn was getting the moon coming in and making a square and triggering everything, because Mars was already squaring all of those planets and is on its way to squaring Saturn exactly. And so the Libra moon just set it all off. And emotionally, so if you didn't feel great emotionally yesterday, this is why. And I definitely feel it lighter today than yesterday. Yesterday was hard. But it, when we have these T-squares, the outlet goes into the sign of Cancer. Now, Venus wasn't ready to be in that zone yet. So Venus is in Cancer, but was not in the zone of like the exact aspect to where Mars and the moon were. Venus isn't there yet. Venus is only with Jupiter right now. And so Venus goes opposite Jupiter. Now, on one level, that's very nice. These are the greater benefics. These are the benefics, the Venus and Jupiter, and these are pleasant relations, Venus and Jupiter, even though it's in opposition. It's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Now, if you are, feeling all of this, as we all are, one of the things that's important to realize that, okay, so remember, the sun went through Cancer and Mars has been in Aries. So every time a planet goes through a cardinal sign, and I've mentioned the cardinal signs before, Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, Libra, every time a planet goes through there, meaning the moon does this every week, one of those signs, it means that, it's going to trigger that cluster of planets in Capricorn. And Venus is now opposing Jupiter, going to oppose Jupiter. It's not really an aspect. Going to oppose Jupiter. And then next Sunday, the 30th, gosh, it's almost the end of August. It is the end of August. Venus is going to oppose Pluto. So remember what happens. In Aries or Libra, whenever a sign whenever they're in the same mode or modality, which is cardinal in this case, and cardinal is the initiators of the zodiac. They're the initiators. Whenever a planet goes through, okay, so right now we're dealing with cardinal. When we've got this cluster in Capricorn, when another planet goes through any of those other three signs, it's going to hit those planets. When it's in, for our time being now, when it goes into Libra or Aries, it's going to square them, which is the challenge. So that's the challenge. When it goes into Cancer, it's opposing them. And so oppositions are more like a seesaw, like, well, we're trying to navigate both of these things. We're weighing things. We're balancing. We're trying to look at both sides of the equation. And it's often about relationships, because the cluster in Capricorn is one thing, and Capricorn is a little stoic. Cancer is not. Cancer's emotional and sensitive. They may not tell you how they're feeling. You may have to divine how they're feeling. And they often want you to do that, those Cancerians. They're not going to tell you. You have to guess, or you have to intuit how they're feeling. They are really, they're the opposition. And so there's this emotional water sign of Cancer and sensitive, and then it's getting smacked around by three planets in Capricorn. So when Venus goes into that fray, Venus is going to be, she's the goddess, and she's going to go in, and now the goddess is like, whoa, what am I going to do with all these guys? And she's got to talk to them one by one very sweetly, because she's in Cancer. So the first thing she does is she opposes Jupiter. And then the good news is that on Thursday, and that means it's very close in aspect, Neptune gets a trine from Venus because she's in Cancer. So Neptune's in Pisces, Venus is in Cancer. So this is a very nice water trine. And this is going to be supportive to this whole thing. So the place that Neptune is in is really in sextile, which is a very smooth, nice aspect. And Neptune is intuitive and psychic and visionary and creative, and it does make a good relationship to those Capricorn planets. And it is at a place where it can make a good relationship to those planets. And so therefore, it's going to support us through the journey. Now that the sun is no longer in Leo, it's not supporting Mars anymore. So we're looking at things being in a different. Now we're looking towards Neptune to support us, And Neptune is spirit, and it's our spiritual life, and it's our vision and our intuition, and those are the things we need to pay attention to get through a lot of this. So Venus will make aspect opposite Jupiter, then Venus will trine Neptune, and then it will oppose Pluto on Sunday. So Venus is very busy this week. So relationships, be unconditionally loving. Think about your friends who are having a harder time than you are. Think about the world at large, and that everybody is having a hard time. Be unconditionally supportive and loving and patient with people. If you're frustrated, again, Mars Saturn, look to the people whose situations are much harder than yours and send them light and compassion. That's what Venus Neptune wants you to do. That's what Venus Jupiter wants you to do. And so this is a lovely relationship, Venus to Jupiter and then trine to Neptune. Once she gets in that opposition to Pluto, things are a little more rocky. And if you are a Venus-Pluto person, you may have some memories of relationships past, because it's a recurrence, and relationships past, losses. Something may come up. Pay attention. It also helps you learn how far you've come since those things have happened to you. But Venus-Pluto is very passionate and sexy. And the goddess wants to frolic. She's in Pluto's realm. And if you don't know the Persephone myth, I suggest, and I've mentioned it here on this podcast before, I suggest you look up the Persephone myth and read about it, because that's Venus-Pluto. So, Mercury is also busy this week. So the same day that Venus opposes Jupiter, which is Tuesday, Mercury is going to trine Uranus. So this is very good for intellectual thinking, for big, bright ideas, for creativity, for thinking and being, innovative, brilliant, and profoundly creative. Very good. Then later in the week, we're going to get some more Mercury action as Mercury opposes Neptune. So it's doing, Mercury's in Virgo. So it's going to trine Uranus, it's going to talk very nicely to Uranus. And then it's going to trine Jupiter on Saturday the 29th, because remember, it's in a nice earthy sign. And then it's going to oppose Neptune, because Neptune is in Pisces. When Mercury was in Pisces, it was retrograde earlier this year, and that was a bit of a mess. And that's when things started to, we started to hear about the pandemic. That was back in February, and we didn't know what to think. And is it going to come here or maybe not? Or people are starting to close things and cancel things. What's that about? And we didn't know what the truth was. So remember that when we get this Sunday, August 30th, the Mercury opposite Neptune. There's some views of that, make remembrances of what happened back when it conjunct Neptune back in February. So, okay. So Mercury's busy. Venus is busy. They make some good aspects this week. The one that we really have to watch out for is the Mars Saturn tomorrow. So if we get through this, we're going to be okay. And if we can get through that, and that might be the stickler. We are really being in a place where we, can sort of stand back and look at the lesson and how to handle it. Yes. And then we move into September, and, September's a little bit of a rockin' month, because Mars is going to retrograde, which brings me to tell you that if you have not seen my Mars effect video about, how Mars is affecting all the planets, and it's going to continue to do that and hit that cluster in Capricorn through the end of the year and into January, then if you are interested in hearing more about that and what this feels like and the election and all sorts of things, then you can go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and go to Book Online, and you will find a place to purchase the video and audio files of my webinar. And it's only $20, so I invite you to do that. And the half hour goes so quickly. So this is a week for brilliant thinking. This is a week to be patient. This is a week to be compassionate. This is a week to be a little sexy, maybe. And, try to find your heart in all of this for the other person, and the compassion for others is really important right now. And no matter how bad your situation is, I'm sure there's somebody who's worse. And that's not to downplay anyone at all. But, and be grateful. Be grateful when you think about your situation and your life, and that we're all in this together. Remember that. We're all in this together. So we have compassion and gratitude that we're, it's not one person going through this alone in the world and being tortured by these circumstances. It's all of us trying to figure it out. And we're all trying to figure it out together. So you're not alone. And be there for other people. Reach your hand out. Tell people you love them. Tell people you're grateful for them in your life. And I thank you for listening. I am grateful to all of you for listening, and I continue to support you in your journey. I have an Instagram where I make videos, and that's the Golden Astrologer. My website's thegoldenastrologer.com. My Twitter is @DebAstrology, and if you are interested in booking a session with me, you can go to my Golden Astrologer website and just click book online, and you will be able to book a session with me. And please keep listening. And if you need to reach out and ask questions, by all means. I also have a YouTube channel, The Golden Astrologer, and I invite you to look at that. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful week.